Hello, everyone. Welcome to this 5th edition of our university series. Today, we're talking about NFTs. My name is Karina Riviello. I will be your host for the night and really excited about this subject. We have a lot of great speakers today. Also, this event is in collaboration with Blockchain at McGill, so we salute them. So hi, guys. Before I introduce you to our amazing speakers, I wanted to tell you more about FinTech Cadence in case you never heard of us. We are a nonprofit organization and we've been around for about 4 years now. And our main goal is really to help create and develop the future leaders of FinTech of tomorrow. So how do we do this? We have a whole bunch of programs and events where we work on our 3 pillars, one of them being education. So we do a lot of events and promotion around what is FinTech and what are the different sectors and verticals of FinTech. We also work collaboratively with all the other actors of the FinTech ecosystem, such as financial institutions, regulatory bodies, startups, of course, and other community supporters. And of course, we support our FinTech entrepreneurs through our different programs, and we really help them pull off their business or at least grow as entrepreneurs. So I mentioned we have a whole bunch of events and our programs that we have throughout the year. When we're talking about these events, we have these few that we have on the screen right now. So of course, our certificate is our seventh course program where you can really learn everything there is to know about FinTech. The course lasts for 7 weeks and is built with all the industry experts, and you can really learn all the technology that's behind FinTech. So we have a course on AI, a course on blockchain, if you're a blockchain fan, et cetera, et cetera. Of course, I was mentioning that we support entrepreneurs. One of our favorite programs is Ascension, which is our incubator program. So every year we have a cohort of new entrepreneurs that do for 3 months validation of their project with us. This year we have amazing new startups who are also presently doing their Ascension program. So if you're interested in learning more about what are the new startups on the market right now, we have a demo day coming up. You can follow us on our social media to know more about that. We also have a Formaton, which is our pre-incubation program. So if you've never did entrepreneurship before and you're curious about the startup sector and you'd like to maybe start your own business, Formaton is a 3-week open innovation competition. It's coming up soon. So if you're interested, you can go see on our website. We have more information. We already have a first challenge that's out, and we'll be announcing a few others soon. We also have a research track. So if you don't want to start your business, but you're interested in FinTech, well, you can always do a research track where you kind of learn everything there is to know about a specific topic with a research professor. And finally, our newest addition to our programs, we have IFH program, which is an incubator program. It lasts for 6 months. This one is specific to financial health. So any startup that's in the financial health sector and wants to help Canadians have a better financial health, that's the perfect program for them. We've just closed our applications and we will soon announce the new cohort for this year. So keep that out also. Events, we have a whole bunch throughout the year. Of course, FinTech Drinks. I don't know if you guys were there yesterday. We had one yesterday and we had a lot of people on the call. It's a networking event. We do them about 5 times a year. So if you missed yesterday's event, don't worry. There's some more coming up through the year. So you can always check out. We always announce them on our social media. FinTech Career Fair, I don't think I have to explain what a career fair is. We usually do that every year. Unfortunately, this year, because of COVID, we had to put that on hold, but maybe we'll have a new one coming up sooner or later. And of course, Famous University Series, you're here today, so you might understand what University Series are. So University Series are events around different trending topics in FinTech, where we explore and deep dive with speakers. And yeah, so welcome to this 5th edition. 2021 in a glance. If you want to know what our events are coming up or what they look like, this is the calendar for this year. So you could also have all the info on our website. So I wanted to start off with maybe talking about NFTs. I know you're a few on the call already. So I'm going to send out a little poll. If you could answer right now, I'm curious to know, for the people who are in the attendance right now, how much do you know about NFTs? Have you ever heard of them? If you do, how well do you know of them? So you have a little poll coming up on your screen. Please answer it and let me know how much you know of NFTs. I'm curious to know and curious to see how we can align this topic for you guys. So there's missing a couple of people. I'll leave you a couple of seconds. Have you heard of it, but you don't know what it is? Do you understand the basics of what are NFTs? Or maybe you're minting and purchasing right now like there's no tomorrow. So I'm curious to know. I'll start the poll. So most of you answered that you understand, but just the basic of it. And I actually have a person in the room that's minting and purchasing, so good for you. Today we have free NFTs for everyone. No, that's a joke. It's April Fools. But I'm sure you'll have a whole bunch of information, and you can ask away also if you want to know more. So before we started, and before I introduce you our amazing speakers, I wanted to do a quick update for those who are maybe less familiar with what blockchain is. So I just wanted to go quickly, a very, very big overview. I am no expert, of course, but just to make sure everybody's on the same page before we deep dive in the subject. So what is a blockchain? So the best way I find to explain what a blockchain is maybe to tell you a bit more of what a ledger is. So when we're talking about ledgers, the traditional type of ledger is just a series of data information that we have, that like this one, where we have a whole bunch of transactions that are followed up on a document. Of course, the thing with these traditional ledgers is that anybody can tamper the data, anybody can add the data. And if you add data, sometimes you won't have the past data. Also, another big problem when you have these sort of transactional ledgers is you don't necessarily know the person who has information data, you don't necessarily have access to it. So you don't know if it's been tampered with. And for a whole bunch of reasons, that's kind of an issue. So when you're talking about blockchain, it's very similar to this ledger. So instead of having these lines of information, we store these little information into these little blocks. And everybody that's on this typical blockchain will have access to add the block to the chain if, So every time there's new information, it will be stored on a new block, and everybody that's on the blockchain will be able to approve this new transaction. Now, once this transaction is approved, it will be added to this blockchain, and it will be secured in. So there will be a sort of key that we call a hash that will be always entailing the new block into the previous one, making sure that this blockchain is now locked in. Now, if we take a bit example before, if I had new information to add to this ledger, all this new information would be on a new block, and the new block would have to be approved by the network of people who are on the blockchain. This has a whole bunch of new advantages because, of course, because the information is decentralized, so everybody that's on the network has to approve the information. Well, first, you're making sure that everybody has access to the data, because every time there's a new block that's added to the blockchain, everybody is aware of it. Everybody has it updated on full time. And of course, anybody who would like to maybe tamper with this data would have to tamper with a block, which would tamper the previous one, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, you'd also have to make sure that anybody who has access to the ledger, which is thousands and thousands and millions of people, would have to change their computer and make sure that you tamper with theirs, which is literally impossible. Also, another big advantage of blockchains is they're usually public. Not all are, some are very private, but most blockchains that we are aware of, such as Bitcoin, Ethereum, and these other very famous ones, are open and public. Now, you may wonder, well, of course, I'm not going to go into the history, but initially this blockchain technology was created for the crypto monies. And now you might wonder, what's the link with NFTs? Maybe not, maybe you're very well aware of them, but there are different types of crypto assets, some that we call fungible tokens and some we call non-fungible tokens. Now, the fungible tokens are any money that you can exchange. Technically, generally, it's called money. It's money because you can exchange $1 for another dollar, and you don't really care which dollar it is, because it's its value is in the value it is. But a non-fungible token is very unique. Each one is different. So you can't really exchange a token, which you would put, example, an art piece, with another token, which would be, example, a hockey card, because they're not the same value. So they're not necessarily exchangeable. So that's kind of the difference between non-fungible and fungible tokens. Now, let's deep dive a bit more into how these new NFTs came to be, what's their applications, and also how can we measure their valuations. So as I said before, I am no expert, but luckily I do have a whole bunch of interesting speakers on the call. So I'd like to introduce you as a first speaker, Oz Alisani, who is our co-founder and CEO of Oxen. Oz, welcome aboard.
Thank you, everyone. Nice to meet you.
Thank you so much for being here, Oz. Oz, you're a financial planner, but recently you started your own company called Oxen. Oxen is a gaming NFT platform, right?
Yes.
Can you tell me a bit more about how it came to be and what's Oxen.
Yeah, so I was lucky to actually participate in Formathon, the competition that we mentioned. Uh,
True.
Essentially, what we did is we saw a need as a gamer that, when people are putting money into these games, there's really no way of them to cash out. People are illegally selling their accounts on like Kijiji and Craigslist. And there's a huge potential for like digital ownership, for like, imagine the future of like in-game entrepreneurs, right? And for that to happen, you actually need to have crypto and NFTs. That technology needs to be incorporated inside the game so that we can create wealth for gamers. We've created this model, and we've created like the technology behind it, and now we're trying to expand beyond gaming, because obviously NFT is a hot buzzword. A couple of months ago, it was a bad word. No one wanted to hear blockchain. So we had to change the mission from being an NFT or a blockchain company to being an in-game economics company. So yeah, essentially, we're looking at different opportunities in different industries right now.
Super exciting. I'm really excited also to know it. Well, of course, I forgot to mention, yeah, you did Formaton. That is really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, we're always excited when we have new startups that come out of the Formaton, but I'm also excited to see where you guys are. You're at the right spot, I think, and the right moment. So
I agree.
thank you so much for being here, Oz. It's fun.
My pleasure.
Next, we also have Justina Ozowska. Justina, maybe you can unmute and turn your camera on and present yourself.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Justina Ozowska. I run Women in Blockchain Canada. We are a non-for-profit organization that aims basically to empower and showcase women in the space. And we usually have events throughout. There we are. I was Louis for a second. That's fine. I saw that. For anyone who missed it, he's going to be coming up later. But today we decided we're each other, so it's fine on April Fools, But to add to that, yeah, so my organization does events that basically cover topics like blockchain and social impact, or we're probably going to do an event on NFTs as well. So whatever is happening and is hot in the space, we try to cover, and we try to get a lot of the female speakers to come out and talk about their journeys. We just recently had a collaboration with the University of Nicosia. So we're going to have some speakers coming in from there. And yeah, looking forward to this event. Thanks for having me.
Super happy to have you on, Justina. And I mean, your work, what you're doing is so important. Unfortunately, there are so few women in the tech sector, and even more so in blockchain. So, I mean, we can only, je lève mon chapeau at all you're doing. So thank you so much, Justina.
Thank you.
We also have with us Louis Cleroux, who's also another entrepreneur. Louis, you are the co-founder and CEO of TimeChain. Can you tell us more about TimeChain and your process? And I mean, I'm gonna steal your punch. You also did Ascension program last year, so also very familiar with fintech and plug in us in. So Louis, can you please tell us more about TimeChain?
Yeah, of course. And I also did the certificate, which was very helpful as well. Yeah, TimeChain is basically the most simple and fastest way to send money cross-border from Asia to Canada. And so we use cryptocurrency as a medium of payment between two banks. And so instead of using SWIFT, which is a very old protocol between banks, and a bit of a black box, we unveiled the black box to make it very easy to track your money and see when the money is going to hit your bank account.
Super cool. Well, happy to see what you guys do with TimeChain. I know you're super active in all other, like you've done Santec, I think, and you're doing Mars and et cetera, et cetera. So you're pretty much everywhere. So excited to see where you guys continue your work, and good job. And thank you for being here, Lee.
Thank you. My pleasure.
We also have the chance, and we want to make this as open and interesting as possible, this conference. And we also have the chance of having Antoine Tava, who is an art pop artist. So Antoine, open your camera, please, and introduce yourself. And I think you might have already seen some of his illustration across the city, because he is quite a well-known. This famous Screaming Heart is one that might have already, if you're in Montreal, maybe you're not, but if you are, you probably have already seen his art before, because he's also on your list. So Antoine, can you tell me more about your history and your interest for NFTs maybe?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. So I'm Antoine Tava. I'm basically a Montreal-based visual artist. I'm a painter, muralist, and illustrator. And I've also had the opportunity to work on a lot of branding projects. I've exhibited my work in Canada, the US, and China, overseas, a little bit everywhere. And had the chance to collaborate with a lot of top tier brands like Nike, Adidas, Ford, and so on, always applying my signature aesthetic. The NFT has definitely sparked my interest quite recently. I have a lot of friends that are dabbing with the NFTs right now, and I'm also very much interested in looking into it further to, maybe get involved with the NFT, some NFT projects.
Super cool. Excited to have you all on. Really, this is a conversation that it's very trending. I think a lot of people have heard of it, and maybe some people are interested in maybe buying or minting NFTs. So let's jump right in. I'll stop sharing my screen so we can all have you on. One thing I want to mention before we start off is if you are in the attendance, please, and you have questions, please send them over. There's a small Q&A box at the bottom that you can ask them. You can also ask them through the chat. And if you ask them through the chat, I really recommend you ask them to panelists and attendees so that everyone can see your questions. We'll try to fit them in as much as we can. So don't hesitate to ask away. So let's deep dive in. Let's start by where does this all start? So I was doing a bit of research before this, and I saw that the first NFTs can be traced back as far back as 2012. Why are we talking about NFTs so much right now? What happened? What was that poof in the trend? So maybe I'll start with you, Os, maybe?
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, there's a lot of milestones since then. I think the first ones that they often talk about is the CryptoPunks. Is it really a game? Then they moved on to CryptoKitties, which was more of a gamification of NFTs. It never really, I mean, the game is kind of a very simplistic Beanie Baby-esque type of game. But we've been seeing a lot more interesting projects really come into the space. When we talk about Decentraland, a VR world where you can own property like virtual land, and that kind of just like spiraled and really brought into the existence of NFTs within games. We saw popularity of NBA Top Shot, and that's from the same creators of CryptoKitties. So we've been actually seeing the trend move up. More and more games are incorporating NFTs, and not just. I know art is really where everybody knows NFT as, but the application of it really, like the foundation of it was really embedded into gaming, at least from the way I see it. Obviously, there's a lot of more players that got into it. When we talk about Mark Cuban or Gary Vee, or even as soon as a couple of weeks ago, where Logan Paul, a YouTuber, sold some NFT Pokemon cards. And I would say really, when I look at the history, even 6 months back, I had trouble convincing people this was the future, to maybe a month or two ago, where in January, where it really just blew up with Beeple and whatnot. But yeah, essentially, there are several milestones since then.
Yeah, definitely. But it's sometimes surprising how it's maybe just there's one element that just makes it pop. I'm curious to know. I just want to jump because that was the more tech perspective, right? You've been swimming into this world for already a few years. But in the perspective of the art sector, Antoine, how did you see this boom coming along? How was the art sector? Did the art sector respond to that?
Yeah, for myself and my peers that are all visual artists, it was kind of like a little bit of a surprise. We were not so immersed in the NFT sort of sector, and we didn't know much about it until, as he mentioned, the Beeple kind of blew up. He's already sort of Instagram famous. He has 1 million followers, and he does amazing work, very politicized, and so on. And all of a sudden, he started talking about these NFT platforms, and it kind of caught everybody by storm, including a lot of my friends that are also very, very well known in the scene, and they're very prolific in the art scene. And everybody wanted to kind of jump on the bandwagon without even really knowing much about the NFT, due to the sort of this big Beeple buzz, And we saw I would say instinctually, it looked like a big PR campaign using people to sort of push these NFT platforms, right? So he became like almost a spokesman for whatever platforms he's working on. And now I see that artists are really jumping on the bandwagon more and more.
It's interesting. I don't know if you guys wanted to add on that, or have you?
Yeah, maybe just want to talk a bit about maybe the origin of crypto and why we went to NFTs. So you could see video games as simulation, right? Most of the time when you play a game, it's like non-consequential. You can die, respawn, then continue the game and becoming like better over time by playing this simulation. And so maybe you heard of it with Elon Musk when he said, maybe we are living in a simulation, right? Maybe this is something that we're already experiencing at this moment. And there was several scientific paper about it. And Bitcoin originated from that mindset, where how can we bridge the crypto, like the virtual world with the real world? And that's where Bitcoin comes in. It's the perfect bridge to transfer value from the virtual world to the real world. And NFTs over the last few years has becoming more and more important towards transferring that value from virtual asset to real asset, a real economic value. And so, for example, when you see Antoine creating those beautiful art, beautiful painting, beautiful clothes, how can we have ownership of that art, of that creation of the mind? That's something that could be transferred also virtually and have ownership virtually. And that's where NFTs can come in and bring even more value to something that is already popular in the real world. Me and Justina, we had several discussion, like deep discussion about that, but maybe Justina, you want to continue on that trend?
Yeah, thanks, Louis. I like that explainer. I'm just gonna pick it up where you left off. So I think being in the industry for a while, you see the trends, everything started with Bitcoin. Then we had Ethereum come in and allowed for people to build decentralized applications. So the way that I saw it is my friend called this like 2 years ago. I remember that call and he said, listen, we already went through the Bitcoin craze, went to the dApps craze, we saw ICOs. He literally said to me, the next thing is NFTs. But we didn't know what was going to cause that to blow up. So personally, I did like an interview like a lot of our friends, as you know, Louis, are into gaming. I personally, I guess I need to get into it now because in order for me to understand the mindset, I have to be more in it. So, but last summer I did I think one of the questions that's been in the space for a while is, how do we take our physical assets and get them on the blockchain? And I think, CryptoKitties was like sort of here's a start. Let's have these, digital kitties that are unique and people can own. And then I think what happened now recently too, is we had two things happening. We had we have a pandemic, so people are home, so they can only buy so much outside. Part of that is they're going to go into other type of assets. And right now, I feel like it's a combination of we're forced to go more inward and we are forced to have a new way of seeing. So the way that I see it is people started working from home and now people are getting more open to the idea of digital ownership and virtual reality. And so now and it's early stages, but in the future, people will put on their little VR suit and shop for their NFTs. People are going to be excited about digital assets. And I had a conversation last summer about that before this major blow up, where I was literally already talking to someone in the space who's like, oh my God, get your wallet, let me send you some NFTs. I'm building these games. And I was like, okay, I'm still on ETH and Bitcoin, give me a second, but I realized he's like, yeah, my kids are buying skins for games. No one cares about physical gifts anymore. My kids are over that. So I think people have to understand that we're like living in a completely new world, and this is just the technology that's going to help us transform how we do these transactions.
Interesting perspective. The idea of going to a virtual museum like in VR is like horrifying and also very exciting. So looking forward for that. Let's jump to my next question, because it's one that the public's been asking, and it's one that I'm also wondering is, how do you create those NFTs and how do you put them up for sale? So I've heard of the term minting, but maybe somebody can tell me a bit more about that and how it works.
Well, I can jump into the like there's several sites where you can actually mint it. So Raribles and Mintables tend to be the two very popular one for art. So what you do is you simply just take an image, and or it could be a video or a GIF or whatever. And then what you would do, you would mint it, and essentially you can decide on royalties. And royalties is a big aspect of this industry. So every time it would resell, the creator would receive royalties, rather than traditional art where it's a one-time sale and that's it. They never really get any monetization afterwards. So this is something that's revolutionary, but you can essentially do that with several different platforms that are out there right now, which are the ones that I mentioned.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And in terms of valuation, also I'm curious to know, because we were talking about this a bit before. When we're talking about valuating like a real art piece, the less examples that we have, the more the value will go up, right? How does this work in this virtual world? How do NFTs work in terms of valuation?
Yeah, so I can take it from there, and then maybe Antoine can talk about the real world, how art is valued. So basically in the virtual world, we have two blockchain that is mainly used for NFTs. Of course, Ethereum is very popular right now with NFTs. Most of the solutions out there are with Ethereum. But the upcoming blockchain, and it's the blockchain I'm really pushing inside our company, is Binance Smart Chain, BSC. And so with BSC, the beauty is that it's much faster, way cheaper, and you create asset which will be liquid on different exchanges around the world. And so by having this liquidity aspect, so being able to trade your NFT with Bitcoin or Ethereum or USDT, it's much more easy to see value right away from your creation. The other aspect is, how much money can I get in the future? And this question is a bit tricky, because right now we are still at the very beginning. And so there's no way of getting this ownership return over time, except from the royalty aspect. So I'm going to give you a very simple example. Let's say I'm a photographer. I take a very good picture of Trudeau, right? Perfect picture, right angle. It's amazing. It's perfect for the cover of a newspaper. If I want to resell it, I call newspaper and I ask them, okay, I have this picture. Do you like it? Do you want the ownership? Yes. And then you make a bid with people, and then you get a price for it, right? You could do exactly the same thing with your directly online. And so you could publish it on the blockchain as an NFT on different platform where they sell these pictures, and you get those royalties back, right? So let's take, for example, Get the Image, Stock Image, all those websites where you get a return on it. And so if I own the picture right, then I would receive those royalty back. And so this is how you can forecast the value. And in finance, if some people here are in finance, you can predict, right, the future income and then get the present value for today. And so this is how you could get a value over time, but as the market will mature. And so this is how the NFTs will evolve over time. And that's why the big buzz is happening right now, because people are getting it right now. Like they're startly getting to understand the financial metrics behind the asset. But Antoine, could you give us a bit more, feedback about how it works when you publish like art on your site?
Well, so more in the tangible world, the clients in the last 10 years have become a lot more savvy when it comes to buy art because of the scene of the street art, the murals, which are free and for everyone, and you know, there's a lot of art fairs more and more, and the Miami art fairs are even more popular. Art Basel, people travel for art now, so you know, you become so you're definitely more tangible, and the way you become a little bit more popular is obviously the amount of curated exhibitions that you attend to, that you participate in, your international presence, the cool factor, the viral factor, and then obviously the pricing is all based on size of the work, complexity, and so on. So there's a lot of ways to scale the popularity of an artist. We do the thing is about, obviously, as an artist, when you do a painting, it's a one-off. You could multiply it as many times you want, different sizes, different ratios, prices go up every year, but obviously there is that rarity where the artist actually has to, you know, apply his paintbrush on the canvas and do it one at a time, which is a one-time purchase. The only way the artist can exploit that a little bit more is when we do print editions. So for example, I'm coming out with a print release now in a week from now, with Station 16 Gallery. And what we're doing is we're doing a print release, one a week, 10 prints, editions of 25. So this is how, on a tangible scale, we multiply our art. So it goes from canvas to then photographed and turned into a print, digitalized basically, but onto a print. So silk screened on a print, signed and numbered. And this is how, on the traditional level, this is how we scale the numbers and how we sell more of the volume of our art. So the canvas becomes more of a rare collectible type of piece, and the print becomes more of that tangible piece. And then once in a while, we transition even more into garments, clothing, where that's even for mass market, you know, more of a retail type market. And obviously that's very easy to transition that into e-commerce, you know, where you could even reach more people. So that's a little bit the comparable with the NFT, which the NFT obviously is a little bit more scalable, and you could go reach a lot of volumes much quicker if you become viral on the NFT platforms.
Interesting. And we see the kind of difference, right? We have a comment from the audience. I think it's more a comment than a question, but the person asked, does this mean future parents have to invest in crypto so their kids don't get left behind and don't have any currency in high school? Let's go for another question. We're talking about valuation of art, but I mean, NFTs can also be, they can be more than just that. They can be gaming tokens, as we were talking about. Does this valuation differ for like music, gaming, and art?
Definitely. So you have to really split NFTs into two. Firstly, I'd like to have a disclosure with NFTs. Often people either think it's either fungible or non-fungible, but it's actually a scale. So you can have different scales. So the only way a non-fungible can be a non-fungible if it's a 1 of 1. That's a pure non-fungible. But if you have a 1 of 10, that's somewhat non-fungible. And if you have it as, you know, 1 of 1,000 or whatever, the more that there is, the less non-fungible it is, the more fungible it becomes. So that scarcity plays into valuation. But more importantly, when you split up the NFTs into two categories, one is being income generating and the other one's being non-income generating. Right now, like there's no way for us to lease out art to museums. So right now it's just how likely is someone willing to pay for this. But there are income generating NFTs, and that's, think of people that buy virtual land inside the game. You know that there's about 2 to 3 million people that are visiting this game, and there's 2 to 3 million potential buyers of whatever you want to sell on that virtual land. You can actually have your own art pieces within the game and sell that. And now you have land that actually produces income. You can have schools or education that you can house inside a game, that when you have visitors, they can come and learn. There's advertising that you can do inside these games. So it's really important to really differentiate, as what Louis was mentioning. You can, like, when you tokenize images and then you lease them or you sell them to newspapers and whatnot, that's income generating. When you're not doing that, it's not income generating. So the valuation differs significantly. And I think in terms of gaming, if there's a game that has more visitors, I think the valuation goes up. One of the most interesting conversations right now is whether NFTs that are tokenized with certain blockchains have a greater value than ones that aren't in the same blockchain. So it's up in the air, but those are some of the conversations that we're currently having.
Sorry, you go, Justina. Yes.
Yeah, so just to add to your point, I think that's one aspect of it. One aspect is like how many have you created of, like, let's say, like, of your art, but the other, and like, or your land, and like that whole aspect of it. But I think just to add to that point, it also depends on the artist and what platform they're advertising on. So now we also have platforms that are like first tier, second tier, like this is where the top artists are. They're already like known artists before they got into the space. So all it's doing is allowing them to digitize more, or showcase more, and just have more royalties, like we discussed earlier, where that they didn't have before. Right. So now the artists are going to get richer, which I'm very happy for them, because I'm into that. But the other thing is also, like, there's a lot of people putting stuff on different platforms, and depending on the platform that you get on, is you may have more exposure versus less exposure. So then, like, it's really about, that's another aspect of it, right? So like one is like the artist, and the other one is how many pieces, but then like, and on what platform, So I think the valuation is composed of like the several components, just to add to your point.
Are these platforms taking a cut on the sell? So at the end of the day, do the artists really make the most money, or does the money go back to the artists? Can we?
Yeah, in short, they do. Like, they'll take a small cut, but most of the money goes back to the artist.
Okay.
Imagine that, like, this is allowing for so much more access. It's like, how many people could physically go to the Louvre and start looking at pieces, or go to a gallery somewhere, or like you said, travel to Miami to go see an art show, versus like, this is now digital. So like, it just expands the market pool of who can come in and who can actually participate. So I think that's what I love about crypto. Crypto is all about inclusion, Crypto is all like, I don't care, I don't discriminate. Like, I'm just like, you have it, and if you can pay for it, you're gonna get it. Anybody can participate. You can have like the higher scale items. You can have cheaper. You can buy cheaper NFTs. You can give away free NFTs. People can do airdrops of NFTs. So.
And also curious to know, like, do we know like who is the main audience who are buying NFTs right now? Is it anybody, everybody, or is it? Because I know comment I often hear is, oh, this other thing that only rich people can afford.
Fans, I would say. So if you follow someone on Instagram, or you have a very popular artist that you follow, and they drop a new NFT and it's exclusive, you're very likely to be interested in at least looking at it. And if you can afford it, it's very possible you will buy. The other aspect, the other market is traders. So only for speculative aspect, they would buy and resell afterwards. And so we have seen some big NFT buy. For example, Jack Dorsey, the creator of Twitter, just sold his NFT for $2 million. So his first tweet that he published on Twitter just sold for 2 million. He gave all the proceeds to charity. But obviously, this is an example of something that is very rare. It's absolutely unique. And there's a lot of speculation, because having this first tweet in the future might be worth way more than 2 million, because there's only one, and there's going to be one forever, right? There's this only first message. And the other example is Bitcoin. The very first message of Bitcoin, where Satoshi Nakamoto created the first transaction, this message is the most secure message in the world. Because of the way blockchain works, all the new blocks that are created on top of the previous block. And so if you send the first transactions, all the blocks afterwards for the last 11 years has to be cracked before you can edit this message. And so this is the concept behind blockchain, which is very well applied also as, this first message, this rarity, this scarcity of this message. So this is, I think, where people will eventually become more and more mainstream. And we have seen PayPal announcing that they will support crypto payments, Visa accepting USDC as a method of payment as well. This is all the new trend. Cryptocurrency is becoming more and more mainstream. And so the bridge between crypto world and the real world will become more and more, easy to cross between each other. So NFTs at the same time is a good way of bridging that world. But as soon as, cryptocurrency become more and more mainstream, it's going to be easier to buy NFT, because buying NFT with cash is still very complicated for someone who don't know how crypto works.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So we're kind of closing down the pool for now of people who can actually buy. Maybe I want to jump, because you mentioned talking about tweets, and we have a question around that. The anonymous says, can people mint tweets, especially if they can get deleted in the future on the platform itself? So I'm guessing he wants to understand a bit more how this works. Yeah, you saw it. I don't know if Justina or Oz, you want to go and maybe.
I'm probably like me and Louis are probably thinking the same thing right now. So basically, when you what is an NFT? Let's go back to that. So an NFT is basically a record on the blockchain. And as you know, you cannot delete anything off the blockchain. So can you really, that's what people don't understand. All of it, the NFT is what you see on the outside, but really what the NFT is represented by is that transaction on the blockchain. So Louis, you want to add to what I just said there?
Yeah, censorship. So it's non-censorship basically. So as the person mentioned, and they totally get it, if you post it on the blockchain, you cannot remove the message. Therefore, you cannot be censored. And everybody in the world have access to that message. So it goes back to the artist mindset. And maybe Antoine, you can talk about the art that you've done recently, like political arts that you try to show also, which has very strong message, like even the screaming heart, right? When you talk about the screaming heart, there's a visual representation of that emotion. And that's exactly what Antoine is creating right now with his art. But what happens if the government, censors his art, That's where NFTs come in, right? You cannot censor the blockchain, therefore you cannot censor his art, his message. And so, like graffitis in the beginning, I don't know, Antoine, if in the beginning you experienced this, I have no idea, but maybe you created graffitis and then people just erase your graffiti, or the government decide, or the police decide to just erase it. And that's it, there goes your message, it's destroyed, right? And then Montreal started to accept those graffiti, and now we're becoming very popular around the world because we have beautiful art. But in the beginning, it was not welcome. Maybe you can talk about back in the days when you were creating graffitis and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, if we go back to the roots of when I all started, I mean, I used to do wheat paste posters. So it was basically drawing on architectural type paper, painting it, all hand painted, and then pretty much pasting them on the streets a little bit everywhere. So I used to do it in Montreal, and when I used to go to the US and New York and stuff like that, do that as well. And it was very nice in a way to kind of showcase your art in a very vigilante manner, but also like you're kind of like showcasing the beauty of what you can do, for everyone to view and appreciate. And obviously the screaming heart, as you mentioned, was a symbol that a lot of people can relate with. I mean, I always use the screaming heart as a symbol that, everybody has a little bit of a screaming heart within, whether it's like, a certain type of emotion that they want to convey. So yeah, so definitely, there's definitely that. I do think that, for me, I've also thought of maybe using the Screaming Heart as an NFT, and that's something that I'm also contemplating. Obviously, there's like always the usage of ownership and all this, that a lot of our artists are still like debating to using their best material for the NFT. It's something that I've been noticing, actually. It's a little bit off topic, but it's something I've been noticing with artists that are emerging and also very popular. And also to bring up Beeple again, is that they're creating this new work now that's outside of what they're creating. Like, let's say you look at their feed, their Instagram feed, and it's very consistent. It's always the same. And they're creating this new type of work. So it's making them explore new ways of creating new work, and for upload for the NFTs. And I'm wondering exactly why they're doing that. I'm wondering if they're scared that because it's there forever, that they want to just create some new content that's there forever. So I think there's definitely an influence there that's happening. Even an artist like Murakami, right? He creates this beautiful canvas work, digital content, and now for the NFTs, he's uploading more pixelized work. So that's like something that's like going on. So a lot of artists are creating a lot of new content that's only specific for NFT. So this said, will my artwork that I translated on the street will be exactly translated for NFT? I'm not sure yet. It's a little bit too early to tell. And this is why that many artists are creating new content for just the NFT platforms.
That's really interesting. It's in a way, I don't know, it's not censorship, but in a way, if artists start censoring themselves because they don't feel completely free, it's another, well, I mean, when we go to the virtual world, it's never exactly the same as the real world. So that's kind of one of the downsides to see. It's interesting. I just want to hop on for a comment that was in the comment section from Pearl Dive that only is for panelists. So I know that the other participants don't see it. So you just mentioned, so Fahrenheit 451 is not going to be a possibility. Too bad. Let's go for another question. So let's continue with this art discussion. We're talking a lot about democratizing art, so that eventually artists get these royalties back. When we're talking about, is this really democratizing of art? Are there any downsides maybe to it, other than what you just mentioned, Antoine? Yeah, I'll just throw it out there.
I mean, I think it is definitely interesting for artists because it's giving them another platform, another voice, and I mean it's definitely an entry point for accessibility and visibility. That's for sure. Because I see a lot of the youth also. There's this new generation of youth that are really getting onto this. I mean, I know people that are in their early 20s that are starting to get on the NFTs really fast on that bandwagon. So I mean, the only thing about the NFT is what's happening now is that I've researched a lot of these NFT platforms, and there's a lot of artists that never did art before. So they don't even have a following, and I see really high bids. So I'm wondering, like, what's happening now is that like the tangible art, people buy based on what they like, right? So you always buy art, hopefully because you like the piece, and some people buy because they see that there's going to be value in the piece. So and I think that's what's going to happen with the NFT. I think people are buying very quickly. They're up valuing the pieces that are up for grabs. And I think that there's going to be a slowdown in market, and there's going to be a filtering process that's going to happen. People are going to start becoming a little bit more savvy on that end as well, and start buying, more for the popular artists, and then sort of the artists that are kind of just trying to infiltrate and doing these like weird GIFs or like pixel type art that never did art before are going to start getting filtered more and more. So that's kind of what the buyer is going to become more and more savvy. So I think that's what's going to happen very soon.
Yeah, interesting. For buyers, I totally see them getting more tech savvy. But what about the artists on their perspective? Are we going to see, like, because a lot of these mediums for artists are not necessarily sometimes well converted to the tech world. How is the scene first, are artists aware of the technology as much as they should be? And second, like, how will they get to know it more and get on this tech world?
I don't think I don't think they're quite there yet in that sense. I think there's still a big learning curve. There's a lot of exploration now of which platform they prefer. So there's some platforms that are very easy. You could just upload your art, you buy a slot and you upload your art and then you put it up for bid, right? And there's some that are a little bit more specific to less emerging artists where you kind of have to get selected. So you submit an application and then you get selected for that, which is already makes the artist feel a little bit safer to work with that platform, right? They see other big names and they're like, okay, this guy has 20,000 followers on Instagram. And I think they actually select you based on your following. If you have more than 10K or 15K, they'll select you as for the platform, right? To do the training, the NFT. So I think that's what's happening. So I think some platforms will also get filtered out via the artist's influence.
That's interesting because I feel like a lot of these platforms also, from what I've seen, some of these accounts are fake, so people can buy. The danger with, I think, places like Instagram is like not all the followers are real. Like the way that I know by being on Twitter, who has organic versus inorganic followers is the engagement. So unless someone goes in and like does a spot check on the artist, we don't have in like the Facebook, Instagram world, there is no validation, like in the blockchain world, trust and verify. Well, like we need to, I think it's interesting to see like, I think it's going to be interesting, but I also want to comment on the fact that like, maybe we can look at how do people define art? Because like right now, there's a lot of things that are getting like NFT that are not just like a piece of art. Like Louis mentioned, the tweet by Jack. And I think that's why I feel like I want to go back to the definition. Like it is, I think the beauty of it is it's going to be helping a lot of artists, but I also think it's going to be helping a lot of companies track like the kind of rarities that they produce. Like, Supreme does only so many this. How do you know you're buying the real one versus not? I think it's just going to give the power back to the consumer to know what they're buying versus what's fake. And that goes back to the validation of things like on Instagram, etc., and why I love blockchain so much. So
you are very passionate, Justina. We can hear in your voice. I have a question for the public, which I find is very interesting. When we talk about NFTs, can we talk a bit more about how NFTs intersect with more traditional types of intellectual property? Example, patent, copyright, trademarks, and how they're different?
Yeah. I can touch upon this because this is one of the hottest topics that is in gaming. So IP is going to be the battleground, and there's going to be a different type of permissions that we're going to be given. Every company is going to have different permissions. But for example, if I would buy a Mickey Mouse character inside a game, am I allowed to print it on a t-shirt? Do I own the rights to this character? Can I have him in a commercial? And that is up to the developer and says, no, this is our IP. I'm not willing to split this. This belongs to us. Even though you own the physical item, you do not own the intellectual property that is attached to that item. So it is a really good question. And I can tell you there's no definite answer because everybody's going to have a different concept of it. Another battleground thing is, for example, let's say an artist would go and print it on mintables, and they find that this piece of art didn't get any traction on mintables. Can they go and re-mint the same piece of art on a different platform like Raribles? Do they have that permission? Technically, who has ownership of the art? Is it the artist or is it the person that mints it? Can you make a differentiation between the actual piece of art and just the digital aspect of it? So these are all conversations that are ever like moving. Like there's really no direct answer. And for sure, the beauty of this whole topic is that yes, a game or a company can do it one way, but if let's say another company or a game does it simply a little differently and gives you a little bit more power or more rights to the item or the IP, does that mean that it's more attractive? So this is this is going to be one of the biggest battleground conversations that we're going to have in NFTs is the intellectual property that's associated with it.
Yeah, definitely. I'm curious to know, Antoine, what are your feelings about IP? And since, I mean,
I think that's why a lot of artists started to create alternative designs for the platforms. I think there was that insecurity about the IPs. They're hearing from all sorts of angles that, you know, the image does not belong to you, or it could be reprinted, or it could be used, or it could be grabbed, or whatever. So I think that's the insecurity. And I see even some of my friends that have 100,000 followers on Instagram are still doing that. They're just creating new content specifically for those platforms. So it's that.
interesting.
I just want to touch upon this one story of this artist that took a picture of a garbage can and kind of like just 3D'd it and try to sell it as an NFT. And he was a very famous artist. His name kind of skips my mind, but essentially he got banned from that platform because how much does an artist need to change of a current image before it's considered something new, right? And you can take a famous artist like Cause, a graffiti artist that kind of does the same thing that Antoine does in that same kind of pop art thing, was notorious for taking ads and just painting over them. Who has rights to that IP, right? And how much does it need to be changed in order for it to be a new piece of work? So it's definitely a hot topic.
Yeah, definitely. Just a quick word, because right now we're living through COVID, right? And I think it has affected all how we view the world and how we are more virtually on this platform, right? When we're going to go back to the real world, and hopefully we will, do you think this will still be a trend? Like, where is this going, all these NFT? Where we see each other, like, where do we see it in 5 years, 10 years?
Yeah, so I think like we'll never go back to the way things were exactly the same. I think it's just people are transitioning how they value assets, I think. You know, think about it like this. People used to buy VHS and now everybody's on Netflix, you know, because it's become so easy. And I think with crypto, it hasn't been because it wasn't being so used, but now I feel like this year is the year I've never seen it so adopted. And we were like with friends, we've discussed like when is the tipping point where crypto is gonna go, and the gamers were like, it's the games, you know, like the games are gonna push forward crypto. And I feel like we're living through like times where like, you know, Visa is getting settled on Ethereum now. Like this is reality.
That's crazy.
And now people like used to be like going and thinking about assets like milk and movies, and now people aren't doing that. So the trend has completely shifted. So now it's how do we value these assets, and part of that now is people want ownership of things that are unique, but they may just be digital. So I think it's just like COVID has shifted people's ownership rights to being more in the digital world, because that's what NFTs enabled. That's just my opinion.
But an interesting one.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys wanted to jump in also and give yours.
Yeah, like
Louis, you want to go first?
Yeah,
Go
yeah.
for
I
it.
just want to talk about a very hot topic right now, the vaccine passport, right? Big debate. Should we have it? Should we not have it? What if other country requires it? Then should we have it by obligation of the other countries? Many questions, we don't have answers. The thing we have an answer though is we could mint it on the blockchain and make sure all around the world we accept that this is proof. And so having an NFT proving that you had the vaccine at this timestamp, at this precise moment, at that place, with this IP, this address, with this receipt, all proven. This is a way to make sure all around the world we accept that this is true. And so this is a classic use case that we could implement it and have an acceptance all around the world together and say, yes, this is true. The problem right now with the healthcare system and many other sectors is that we do not have a common database that is shared between all those health institutions. Even in Quebec, we have different databases. It's very difficult for one hospital to transfer to the other hospital. Now imagine this from Canada, all across Canada, now around the world in different languages, right? And that's exactly what I'm trying to fix right now with the finance sector, right? Transferring money from one institution to the next. They don't have the same payment rails. There's no way to confirm on the same platform. They don't talk to each other. They don't trust each other. And so that's where blockchain comes in, Bitcoin comes in. We trust Bitcoin because it's settled on a blockchain. We have proof on it. Wherever you are around the world, we accept this as truth. And so the NFTs will become a way of proving things that are important also in the future. So when you talk about, are we going back to normal? The answer is no, we're never going back to normal. This is a new transition that we just lived. And even yourself, like when you see someone not wearing a mask, for sure, you're gonna think, oh, he's not wearing a mask, what's happening, right? If last year, 1 year ago, if you see someone with a mask, you're like, why is he wearing a mask? Like, what's this point? Like, you don't want to,
I watch movies and I'm like, why are they not wearing masks? I'm just so confused in my mind.
So yeah, that's the new reality. So this is like imprint right now in our mindset. And so there's going to be good things and bad things, obviously, but the good part is that we're going to become more and more efficient with those new technology in the future.
Super.
I agree. And I think the future is going to see some, like right now in the art scene, at least, we're seeing a lot of people minting. So I think Antoine was touching upon it, and Justina, I think as well, there's a lot of garbage out there too. So, you know, you're going to need to kind of classify NFTs good from bad. And, you know, right now, you know, we're still looking at maybe like 90% of it is probably going to go to zero, to nothing, maybe even more. We're only seeing probably 10% of it move forward. Another thing too in gaming, if you have gaming NFTs, what happens when the game is no longer played? What happens to the value of those NFTs? So evaluation and like, it's like longevity is going to be maybe like questioned in the sense that, is the technology going to stay? Yes. Are the same tokens that we're tokenizing right now going to be still as valuable in the future? That's something completely different. I don't think anybody would be able to answer that.
Definitely. Super interesting. I'm looking forward to know where this goes. I'm always excited when I see new things. And like you mentioned before, I think we're never going back to a normal life. That's for sure. And we're seeing this trend right now. I mean, Visa coming, like you mentioned, Justina, earlier, it's such a big game changer for the whole ecosystem. We're talking about the biggest credit provider in the US that decided to accept Bitcoin. So already we're seeing everybody on the blockchain, right? So I'm looking forward to see where we're going with that. And yeah, thank you so much, guys. That was very, very interesting. I don't know if we have like last minute questions from the public. I know we've passed our time and a lot of people have a long weekend and are really eager to go on a long weekend, even if we're stuck at home. But I'll invite anyone to ask questions if you have any last ones to ask. And I also want to thank every one of you that's on the call. I want to thank my amazing speakers. You guys were amazing. I think a lot of people had a lot of good takeaways and super insightful things that you guys shared. Thank you. And last quick word. I know I don't want to really share my PowerPoint, but if ever you guys are interested, we were talking earlier about Formaton. I know that Oxygen, who came out of Formaton. Last little push, we've just launched our first challenge for that exciting event. If ever you're interested in fintech and want to know more, we might or might not have a crypto challenge. It will be sent out in a few days and a few weeks. So go on our website, go on our Facebook page if you're interested to know more about fintech, and keep us on the lookout. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a good
you.
night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.